Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you very much for being with us once again in these weekly videos of the Gita for Everyone program. So today we're going to discuss chapter 12. Just to place ourselves in the context of the book so far, we have reached the end of the middle section. Chapter 12 ends the middle section from chapter 7 to 12, where Krishna explains who he is, what he gives us in return, what are his warranties, what are his terms and conditions, and also more than anything, how can we establish a loving, intimate, friendly relationship with him. Those are the topics that he discussed in chapter 9, also in chapter 10, and in chapter 11 he specifies that he has a form. Not only one form, has many forms, but the personal form are the one that we are interested as devotees to interact with him and serve him in love and devotion. So this title, the word that we're going to use is devotion. Here, that's the topic. Not only devotion, but also how does devotion look in real world, in practice. So he describes the devotees. That's what he does mostly in this particular chapter. Now the topic, we're going to use a word or an example in relation to the analogy that we have used for this middle section, the job interview. So here the deal is going to be closed. We have accepted, or Arjuna have accepted the job offer that was done in chapter 3, and in chapter 10 with his prayers, and in chapter 11 again with his prayers, he assures Krishna that he is accepting everything. So here what we find is, what we generally get if we get a job is the job description. So this is what we're going to do, devotional service. And several times Arjuna asks questions just to clarify the topic of devotion. He asked questions in chapter 3, what is better, to work in devotion or to simply renounce? What is better? The same thing he asked in chapter 5, more or less. And then he presents different questions in order for us to be more clear of what exactly Krishna is talking about for our own benefit. Now, how this chapter begins, very simple, very direct, is the standard kind of format for the chapter. The question that Arjuna presents in in text number 1 is, what is better, devotional service or impersonal Brahman worship? That's basically the question. And Krishna answers very quickly. He says, the devotee is the most perfect. The one who engages in devotional service is the most perfect. And he gives a couple of verses explaining why devotional service is better than impersonal Brahman worship. Because in essence, impersonal Brahman worship, it's troublesome, right? So 20 verses, it's one of the smallest chapters. Chapter 12 and 15 are the shortest chapter of the whole book. All right, so it's something for us to remember, the smallest verses of the whole book. And how it ends, in 8 verses, Krishna describes his devotees. Just like when a father or a teacher or a mother or some superior is very proud of his son, daughters, students, employees. In the same way, Krishna here ends the chapter saying, these are the reasons why my devotees are very, very dear to me. So in the last 8 verses of this chapter, we can see how Krishna is basically describing why a devotee is superior, because he becomes very dear to him. That's the reason. The content, the topic is the definition of devotional service and why devotional service is above other practices. There are different sections. We have the questions of Arjuna, we have the benefits of devotional service, we have the complications of other paths such as the impersonal Brahman worship, and we have the description of the reasons why the devotees are so dear to Krishna. What is the connection with the previous chapter? In chapter 11, specifically in the last 2 verses, text 54 and 55, Krishna explains about devotional service. One of the things that through devotional service we can understand Krishna as he is. So that's one benefit. The other thing that he says is that one who knows him can come back to him. Again, the same point. Do you remember how many times Krishna has said that we can go back to him? He keeps saying this point. So in this particular chapter, he explains, he says, I personally deliver my devotees from the ocean of birth and death. So that's the connection. In previous chapter, Krishna refers to devotional service. In this chapter, the whole set of verses is devoted to explain the benefits of devotional services, and specifically how does devotional service look like when it's applied by the devotee, and what is the result? Becoming very dear to Krishna. What's the next, the connection with the next chapter? Chapter 13. Here Krishna will explain that he will save his devotee. That's also another recurrent topic that he mentions. The question for the next chapter, and not only for the next chapter, but for the whole next section from chapters 13 to 18, is how Krishna protects and saves the devotees from the material world. That will be the topic, the underlying topic for the whole section. So that's the connection. Now, in personal terms, we can use this chapter to assess our level or our intimacy with Krishna. Krishna here is describing the devotees. He's not entering into any elaborate or elongated discussion or description of philosophy and different aspects of devotional service that he could easily have done. But he prefers to describe the devotee. Just like in chapter 5, Krishna describes the result of devotional service by describing a devotee who had applied, chapter 2, 3, and 4. So in this case, at the end of the whole section, the middle section, where Krishna is trying to close the deal with Arjuna, he says to Arjuna, if you serve me in this way, if you relate to other people in this way, if you understand things in a particular way, whether it's internally or with the things that surround you, you become very, very dear to me. And to close this chapter, he says those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service become very, very dear to him. So the Acharyas have explained that this section of the Bhagavad Gita contains like jewels, like pearls, like precious stones that generally we don't understand in other chapters, especially in the beginning sections of the Gita and the last sections. If you remember in chapter 10, again he describes his devotees in the chapters Lokis. And also in chapter 7 he describes those who come to him. And in chapter 9 he describes the intimate relationship with his devotees. My devotees always glorified me. He describes the devotees as great souls or Mahatmas. So again, to conclude and to close this section, to close the devotional angle that he takes to convince Arjuna, he tells, this is why devotional service is the best. Why? Because those devotees become dear to me, very dear to me, and very, very, very dear to me. To such an extent that I personally deliver them. He says, I am the swift deliverer. In chapter 12, text number 7. Teshaham, in Sanskrit, Teshaham samudharta. I come and basically we can translate literally, I pick them up from the mrityu samsara sagarat, from the ocean of repeated birth and death. So that is the relationship. If you work for Krishna, if you commit to him and become his devotees, he personally, the boss, the absolute boss, will come and rescue you. So I hope this analysis has made it very simple for you to remember, to understand, and also to present Gita to others. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.